The pregnant black woman stood abandoned on the train platform, while her intended groom walked away in disgust, leaving her clutching a worn carpet bag as townspeople whispered and stared. Serafina Caldwell pressed one hand against her swollen belly. The other gripped the handle of her bag until her knuckles turned white. 6 months carrying this child. 3 weeks traveling west on promises written in careful script. Now Cornelius Whitmore's back disappeared around the corner of the general store. The September wind carried dust and judgment in equal measure. Women pulled their shawls tighter. Men shifted their weight from boot to boot. Someone coughed. Someone else whispered about false advertising and damaged goods. Heat climbed Serafina's neck despite the cool air. She had scrubbed her one good dress until the fabric nearly wore through. Braided her hair with ribbons saved from better times. Practiced. Her smile in the train car window for 3 states. The train whistle shrieked behind her. Final call. Last chance to run back to nothing. Her knees trembled. The weight of the child and the weight of watching eyes pressed down like stones. The platform tilted. The faces blurred. A voice cut through the noise. She's not going anywhere. She's mine now. The crowd parted. Boots on wood. Steady steps that did not hurry or hesitate. Serafina looked up through the haze of her shame. The man stood taller than most, darker than some. His face carried lines earned by weather and worry. Black hair touched his collar. His eyes held the color of winter sky before snow. Tobias McKinnon planted himself between Serafina and the crowd. His presence shifted something in the air. The whispers died. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Stone said nothing else. He waited. Sheriff Jonas Creed pushed through the gathering. His badge caught the late afternoon light. "You sure about this, McKinnon? That's a lot of trouble to take on." Stone's gaze never left Serafina's face. "No trouble, I can't handle." The sheriff's mouth worked around words he never spoke. He touched his hat brim. Backed away. The crowd began to scatter like leaves before wind. Stone extended his hand. Palm up, calloused from honest work. Serafina stared at those fingers, at the quiet strength in his wrist, at the way he stood, between her and the world without asking her name or her story or what she carried besides the obvious burden. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed gently. He lifted her to her feet, took her bag without ceremony, started walking toward the edge of town. They walked in silence, past the church with its pointed steeple, past the saloon with its painted doors, past houses where curtains twitched and faces appeared in windows. Serafina's shoes raised small clouds with each step. Her breath came shorter than it should. The child pressed against her ribs. Stone noticed her pace slowing. He slowed too, never rushing, never pulling. His cabin sat apart from the rest, small but solid. A garden plot waited for spring planting. A corral held 2 horses that lifted their heads at Stone's approach. He opened the door, stood aside. The interior held the smell of wood smoke and leather, a table, 2 chairs, a bed in the corner with blankets folded neat as military corners. Shelves lined one wall. Books leaned against each other like old friends. Stone set her bag beside the door, moved to the fireplace, began building, flame from kindling and patience. Serafina remained standing. Her hands found each other across her belly. Words gathered in her throat but refused to come. Stone spoke without turning from the fire. "I expect nothing from you except to keep breathing and stay safe. You need shelter. I got it. That's the arrangement." She watched his shoulders move as he worked, the careful way he placed each piece of wood. Something small and carved sat on the mantel above his head. A toy horse worn smooth by small hands. Stone followed her gaze, reached up, made the horse disappear into his pocket. The fire caught. Light danced across the walls. "You can have the bed," Stone said. "I'll take the floor." His voice carried no expectation, no demand, no hint of what men usually wanted from women in their debt. "Why?" The word escaped before Serafina could stop it. Stone finally turned. His eyes held shadows. deeper than the corners of the room. Some things don't need explaining. A knock rattled the door. Stone's jaw tightened. He opened it to reveal Sheriff Creed holding his hat. "Need a word, McKinnon?" Stone stepped outside. Their voices carried through the thin walls. "You're asking for trouble. An Indian taking up with a colored woman? Town won't stand for it. Then the town can mind its own business. This ain't just about you anymore. Think about what happens when folks get riled up. Think about her." "I am thinking about her." The sheriff's boots scraped against the porch boards. Stone's did not move. "Your funeral, McKinnon." The door closed. Stone returned to his fire tending. His movements held the same careful control as before, but tension lived in the set of his shoulders now. Serafina pressed her back against the wall. Her hand found the small of her back, where the ache had taken root. The child shifted restlessly. Pain shot through her middle, sharp enough to steal breath. She doubled forward. Stone crossed the room in 3 steps. His hands hovered near her shoulders without touching. "Easy now." Another wave hit, stronger. Serafina's vision grayed at the edges. "When?" Stone's voice stayed level. "Not yet. Not for weeks. But something's wrong." Stone guided her to the chair, knelt beside her. The fire painted his face in amber light. "We'll get the doctor." Serafina shook her head. "Can't pay." "I can." She studied his face. Found no calculation there. No weighing of cost against benefit. Just quiet certainty. The pain eased. Left her shaking. Stone built up the fire. Put water to boil. Moved through his small space with purpose while Serafina breathed carefully and wondered what kind of man claimed a stranger's trouble as his own. Outside, the wind picked up. It rattled the windows and whispered around the eaves. Inside, warmth began to push back the chill. Stone pulled a second blanket from his chest, draped it around Serafina's shoulders. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." She closed her eyes. Let the exhaustion take her toward something that felt almost like safety. Morning came gray and reluctant. Stone was gone before Serafina woke, his boots by the door missing. Coffee still warm on the stove. She found bread wrapped in clean cloth, butter in a covered dish, jam made from wild berries. He had left food, without ceremony or expectation of thanks. The pain from yesterday had settled into a dull ache. The child moved less than usual. Serafina pressed her palm against her belly and whispered words her own mother had spoken. Prayers and promises, and pleas for time. Stone returned at midday, dust on his clothes, sweat staining his hat. He worked cattle at the Magnolia Ranch 5 miles north, the biggest spread in 3 counties. Good pay for hard work. He washed at the basin, changed his shirt, said nothing about the morning or the night ahead. Serafina had swept his floors, organized his shelves, discovered books she had not expected, Shakespeare beside farming manuals, poetry next to veterinary guides, a man who read widely and thought deeply. The legal documents lay open on his table, land claim papers thick with official language and careful print. Serafina read through them while Stone prepared their meal. "This boundary line is wrong," she said. Stone looked up from the stove. "They trying to take 40 acres that belong to you." He set down his spoon, joined her at the table. "Show me." Serafina traced the survey marks with her finger, explained the discrepancy in measurements. Stone listened without interrupting. His eyes moved from the papers to her face and back again. "You read well. Better than most. My father believed education was armor." Stone rolled the papers carefully, put them away. Armor that can cut both ways. They ate in comfortable quiet. Stone had made venison stew, thick with vegetables from his garden, bread baked the day before, simple food prepared with skill. After dinner, Stone taught her to load his rifle. His hands guided hers on the stock, showed her how to sight down the barrel, how to breathe before the shot. The gun felt heavier than expected. More final. "In case," Stone said. Serafina nodded. Set the rifle in the corner where he showed her. within reach but out of sight. That night she woke to voices outside, low and urgent. Stone's boots crossing the floor, the door opening on careful hinges. Cornelius Whitmore stood in the moonlight. His face held the pale shine of righteousness. Behind him, 3 other men shifted weight from foot to foot. McKinnon, we need to talk. Stone filled the doorway, nothing to discuss. That woman's trouble. Everyone knows it. Cut her loose before things get complicated. Already complicated. Whitmore's voice rose. She's carrying some other man's bastard. Probably diseased. Definitely cursed. No good can come from harboring her. Kind. Stone's silence stretched taut. When he spoke, his words carried the weight of winter. You're done talking. The men behind Whitmore muttered among themselves. Boots scraped dirt. Someone spat. This ain't over, McKinnon. Yes, it is. Stone waited until their footsteps faded. Locked the door. Checked the rifle. Returned to his bedroll without explanation. Serafina lay still. Listened to his breathing. Find its rhythm again. Wondered what she had brought to his quiet life. The days took on pattern. Stone left before dawn. Serafina tended the cabin and small garden plot. He returned at sunset. They shared meals and careful conversation. She helped him with papers that required close reading. He showed her how to tend the horses, how to read weather in cloud formations, how to make coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Neither spoke of the future beyond tomorrow. The town treated them like a spreading stain. Women crossed streets to avoid meeting Serafina's eyes. Shopkeepers served them, last and grudgingly. Children whispered and pointed until parents yanked them away. But some faces held different expressions. The doctor who had delivered half the county nodded respectfully. The widow Henderson offered a brief smile. The old preacher's wife left preserves on their doorstep. Cracks in the wall of judgment. Small but growing. Stone lost work at the Magnolia Ranch. The foreman cited reduced need for hands. Everyone knew the real reason. Pressure from men like Whitmore who controlled credit and custom. Stone absorbed the news without complaint, found day work where he could, splitting wood, fixing fences, honest labor that paid honest wages. Never enough. Their supplies dwindled. Serafina stretched meals with wild greens and careful planning, made soap from lye and kitchen grease, mended clothes by lamplight. She found strange things around the cabin. A loose board on the front step that had been tight the day before. Water in their well that tasted bitter. A broken gate latch on. The corral. Small sabotages. Petty cruelties. The work of men who struck from shadows. Stone noticed everything. Fixed what was broken. Said nothing about the pattern emerging. One evening, Serafina could not hold her secrets any longer. Stone sat by the fire reading. The light painted his profile in gold and shadow. I'm not a widow. Stone's hands stilled on the pages. He did not look up. I ran from my husband back east. He had cruel hands and a crueler temper. The bruises healed, but the fear never did. Stone closed his book, set it aside. If he finds me, Serafina continued, he'll take me back, take the child, make us both pay for my leaving. Stone's eyes found hers across the small room. Then we make sure he doesn't. His certainty should have been impossible. A stranger's promise against a legal husband's rights. But something in Stone's voice made belief feel reasonable. The night wind picked up, rattled the windows, whispered around the eaves with voices that sounded too much like warnings. Stone added wood to the fire. The flames climbed higher, pushed back the darkness trying to seep through the walls. Outside, something moved in the shadows beyond the corral. A figure that watched and waited, and then melted away like smoke. Neither of them mentioned seeing it, but Stone loaded his rifle before bedtime, set it closer to hand than usual. Serafina touched her belly where the child had grown quiet. Too quiet. The ache in her back had spread. Her ankles swelled despite elevation and rest. She needed medical attention they could not afford, in a town that barely tolerated their existence, from people who would rather see her gone than helped. Stone seemed to read her thoughts. Tomorrow I'll talk to Doc Morrison. You can't pay what he'll charge. I'll find a way. Serafina studied his face in the firelight, found no doubt there, no calculation of cost against benefit. Just quiet determination to protect what he had claimed as his own. The fire burned low. Shadows lengthened. Outside, the wind carried the scent of weather changing. Storm coming. The kind that stripped leaves from trees and tested the strength of walls. Stone banked the coals, checked the door one final time, settled onto his bedroll with the rifle within easy reach. Sleep came fitfully, broken by dreams of running feet and reaching hands and voices calling her name across impossible distances. Somewhere in the darkness, a horse whinnied, nervous, alert. Stone's breathing changed, no longer the rhythm of sleep. They both lay still, listened to the night, waited for whatever came next to show its true face. Dawn found Serafina following Stone's footprints through frost-brittle grass. He knelt beside a small grave marked by river stones. His lips moved without sound. Words meant for ears that could no longer hear. The wooden horse sat atop the stones, worn smooth by small fingers, painted brown and white in careful strokes. Stone's shoulders carried the weight of more than morning cold. He did not turn when her footsteps approached, did not acknowledge her presence beside the grave. The headstone bore two names carved deep: Ayanna McKinnon, Little Hawk McKinnon, wife, son. Dates that told the story of fever and loss and a winter that took everything. 3 years, Stone said. Fever came fast, took them both in a week. His voice held the texture of old wounds, healed, but tender to touch. I claimed you because I couldn't watch another family get destroyed. I failed them. Won't fail you. Serafina touched his shoulder, felt the tension coiled beneath skin and muscle, the guilt that lived in his bones. You didn't fail them. Fever takes who it wants. Stone stood, brushed dirt from his knees. His eyes held the color of winter sky before storm. Should have done more. Been better. Been enough. The wind carried the scent of snow from distant mountains. Winter coming early. Harsh season for new beginnings. They walked back to the cabin without speaking. Truth hung between them now. No more secrets about toys hidden on mantles or shadows in his eyes. Stone built up the fire, made coffee strong enough to strip paint. Serafina settled at the table with his account books, numbers that told stories of careful saving and planned dreams. The figures spoke of years of discipline, money set aside dollar by dollar, a future built on horse breeding and honest work. You've been planning this a long time. Stone poured coffee into chipped cups, set one before her with gentle care. Always wanted to breed horses, good bloodlines, animals that can survive this country and still have heart. Serafina studied the breeding charts tucked between ledger pages, bloodlines traced through generations, names and traits mapped with scientific precision. Your mare's carrying. Stone nodded. Due before Christmas. First foal from the stallion I bought last spring. Everything depends on how she throws. The mare grazed in the far pasture, bay coat gleaming in morning light, belly round with promise. I can help, Serafina said. I know numbers, breeding records, profit margins. Stone's hand stilled on his cup. You'd do that. We're partners now, whether we planned it or not. Something shifted in Stone's expression. The wall he kept between past and present cracked just enough to let hope seep through. They spent the morning working side by side. Serafina organized his scattered records. Stone repaired fence posts damaged by night visitors. Their movements found rhythm, purpose shared and doubled. At midday, the mare went into labor. Stone led Serafina to the paddock. The mare paced restlessly, sides heaving, sweat darkening her coat despite the cool air. First time mothers struggle, Stone said. Could be hours. They settled into watching, Stone's hands ready to help if needed. Serafina keeping careful notes on timing and signs. The foal came breech, wrong way and dangerous. Stone stripped off his shirt, rolled up sleeves, guided the birth with steady hands and patient strength. The colt slipped into the world wet and struggling. Stone cleared his airways, rubbed circulation into still limbs, coaxed breath into tiny lungs. When the foal finally stood on shaking legs, Serafina felt tears she had not expected. New life in a world that seemed bent on taking it away. Stone's face held wonder, the same expression he might have worn watching his son take first steps, past and present blending into something beautiful and painful. The colt nuzzled his mother, found milk, began the business of living. Stone washed his hands in the water trough, his movements careful and reverent. Serafina watched him work, saw the tenderness he tried to hide beneath practical motions. When he turned, she was close enough to touch, close enough to see herself reflected in his eyes. The kiss happened without planning, soft and tentative. Question asked and answered in the space of heartbeats. Stone's hands found her face, traced the line of her cheek with calloused fingers. Serafina leaned into his touch, let herself feel safe for the first time in years. The moment broke when horses whinnied alarm from the front corral. Stone grabbed his rifle, moved toward the cabin with hunter's caution. Serafina followed close behind. Her hand found the small pistol he had taught her to carry. Cornelius Whitmore sat his horse in their yard. 2 other men flanked him. All 3 wore expressions of righteous purpose. McKinnon, we tried being neighborly. Time for plain speaking. Stone stepped into view, rifle held easy but ready. Nothing neighborly about night visits and sabotage. Whitmore's face flushed red. That woman's brought nothing but trouble. Doc Morrison won't come, store won't extend credit. You're poison in this town. Then we'll make our own way. You're making things hard for decent folks, hard for business, hard for proper families trying to raise children right. Stone's silence stretched wire-tight. The other men shifted in their saddles, hands drifting toward gun butts. Last chance, McKinnon. Send her away. Start fresh. All's forgiven. Nothing to forgive. Whitmore spat tobacco juice into the dirt. Suit yourself. Don't say we didn't warn you. They rode away trailing dust and implied threats. Stone watched until they disappeared around the bend. Did not lower his rifle until hoofbeats faded completely. That evening brought visitors of different intent. Doc Morrison's buggy creaked into the yard. The old physician climbed down stiffly, medical bag in hand. Heard you might need assistance, he said. Stone stepped forward. Can't pay full price. Doc Morrison waved away the concern. Consider it payment for that horse you gentled for my daughter. Best mount she ever had. He examined Serafina with professional thoroughness. Asked questions about pain and timing and symptoms that worried her. His hands were gentle despite their age. Baby's riding low, he said finally. Could come early. But mother's strong. Child has good heartbeat. He left medicine for pain, instructions for when labor started, a promise to come when needed regardless of weather or hour. After he left, Stone and Serafina sat by the fire. The day's revelations settled between them like furniture in a new house. Useful, but unfamiliar. The colt's doing well, Stone said. Strong bloodline, he'll make a good stallion someday. Stone poked at the fire with an iron rod. Sparks climbed toward the chimney. We could build something here. Something that lasts. Serafina touched her belly where the child kicked restlessly. If we're allowed to. Outside, the wind picked up, rattled windows and tested the strength of walls. Winter coming whether they were ready or not. Storm weather building in the distance. The kind that changed landscapes and revealed what truly mattered. Stone banked the fire for the night, checked locks and loaded weapons, settled onto his bedroll with the weariness of a man who had found something worth protecting. The night passed quietly, but both of them slept lightly, listening for sounds that did not belong, waiting for whatever test came next. The blizzard struck 3 weeks early. Wind screamed across the prairie carrying ice and fury. Snow fell sideways. The world disappeared beyond the cabin walls. Serafina woke to pain that felt different from all the others. Sharp, insistent, Timed by nature's clock rather than her own, Stone knelt beside her bed, his face grave in the firelight. How long between pains? She gripped his hand. Minutes. Getting closer. He moved to the window, pressed his face against glass thick with frost. The storm raged beyond sight or reason. No buggy could travel these roads. No horse could find its way through the white maze. Doc Morrison lived 5 miles away. Might as well be 50. Stone built up the fire until it roared, set water to boil, gathered clean cloths and steady nerves. His hands moved with purpose despite the fear living in his eyes. The pain came in waves, each one stronger than the last. Serafina bit down on leather to keep from crying out. The child wanted freedom and would not be denied. Stone had helped birth foals and calves, guided new life into the world with patience and skill. But human birth carried different stakes, higher cost for failure. The hours blurred together. Pain and breathing and Stone's voice talking her through each contraction. His hands steady when hers shook, his certainty borrowed when her own fled. The baby came with the dawn, small and purple and terrifyingly still. Stone worked with desperate efficiency, cleared airways, rubbed tiny limbs, breathed life into lungs that had never tasted air. The first cry broke the silence, weak but real. A daughter announcing her arrival to a world that had not been expecting her. Serafina held the baby against her chest, felt the flutter of heartbeat against heartbeat. The child was too small, too early, but alive in all the ways that mattered. "We'll call her Hope," Serafina whispered. Stone touched the baby's perfect fingers. His face held wonder and terror in equal measure. "She's a fighter." Doc Morrison arrived 2 hours later. His horse fought through drifts that reached the stirrups, his medical bag crusted with ice. He examined mother and child with gentle thoroughness. The baby's breathing worried him. Her color, the way she struggled with each small breath. "Too early," he said quietly. "Next few days will tell the story." He left medicine and instructions, promised to return as soon as the roads cleared. His face carried the weight of uncertainty. The first week tested every prayer Serafina knew. Hope barely fed, slept too much or too little. Her breathing came shallow and quick. Stone carved a cradle from pine boards, lined it with the softest cloth they owned, kept the fire burning hot enough to turn the cabin into summer. Neither parent slept more than minutes at a time. They took turns watching, listening, willing their daughter to keep fighting. Serafina taught Stone to change diapers. He showed her how to warm milk to the perfect temperature. They learned the language of infant needs through trial and exhaustion. The town might have shunned them, but their isolation became protection. No judgment, no unwanted advice. Just two people creating a family from love and determination. Stone's savings dwindled, medical bills, lost work days, the cost of keeping 3 people alive through a winter that showed no mercy. The general store extended no credit. Other merchants followed suit. Stone traded labor for supplies when cash ran short, split wood for flour, repaired fences for coffee. His hands cracked from cold and overwork. Serafina watched him push through exhaustion that would have felt smaller. Men, never complaining, never suggesting they had bitten off more than they could swallow. The mysterious stranger appeared on a Tuesday, well-dressed despite the weather, horse too fine for frontier travel. He asked questions at the saloon, casual inquiries about recent arrivals. Stone heard about it from the blacksmith. Payment for shoeing came in information as much as coin. "Man's looking for someone," the blacksmith said. "Pregnant woman who traveled west. Says he's been hired to find her." Stone's blood turned winter cold. Any description? Tall, light-skinned colored woman. Educated. Probably traveling under a false name. Stone finished his work in silence. Paid his bill. Rode home through snow that felt like falling knives. He found Serafina nursing Hope by the fire. Mother and child painted in golden light. The picture of peace he would kill to protect. "We might have company soon." Serafina's hand stilled on the baby's blanket. "How much time?" Stone checked his rifle. made sure the loads were fresh. Maybe days, maybe hours. They spent the evening making preparations. Stone taught Serafina the back trail to the widow Henderson's place. 3 miles through rough country but hidden from the main road. If things go bad, you take hope and run. Don't look back. Don't wait. Serafina studied his face in the firelight. What about you? I'll buy you time. The weight of that promise settled between them. They both understood the likely cost. That night, Stone slept with his gun. Serafina kept hope close. Every sound outside might be wind or might be danger. No way to tell until too late. The stranger came calling Thursday morning, knocked politely, introduced himself as Detective Marcus Webb. His badge looked official. His manner suggested urgent business. Stone answered the door with rifle in hand. Serafina stayed inside with hope. Close, enough to hear but out of sight. Looking for someone, Webb said. Woman who might have passed through recently. Goes by the name Serafina Caldwell. Or maybe Serafina Hartwell. Don't know anyone by that name. Webb's smile never wavered. Mind if I look around? Just to be thorough. Stone's grip tightened on his weapon. I mind plenty. The detective stepped closer. His coat fell open to reveal a pistol. Perfectly legal search, friend. I have authority. Not on my land, you don't. They faced each other across 3 feet of frozen ground. 2 men measuring resolve and calculating odds. This doesn't have to be difficult, Webb said. Just answer a few questions. Help me do my job. Already answered. Now you can leave. Webb touched his hat brim. Mock courtesy covering real threat. I'll be around town for a while. Case you remember anything useful. He mounted his horse. Rode away without hurry. A man confident in his eventual success. Stone watched until he disappeared, then barred the door and began serious preparations for war. That evening brought different news. Detective Webb had taken rooms at the boarding house, asked more questions, showed a photograph to anyone willing to look. The picture showed Serafina's face. Younger but unmistakable. He knows, Stone said. Serafina held Hope closer. The baby fussed in her arms, sensitive to the tension crackling between her parents. What does he want? Stone cleaned his rifle with careful attention. We'll find out soon enough. Outside, the wind howled warnings, storm coming. The kind that trapped people in place until spring decided to show mercy. But storms cut both ways. What kept them in also kept others out. Stone banked the fire for a long night. Checked every window, every door, every shadow that might hide watching eyes. The detective would make his move soon. Man like that didn't waste time on social calls. Hope slept fitfully in her cradle. Serafina dozed in the chair beside her. Stone kept watch with the patience of a hunter. Whatever came next would test everything they had built together. Love, trust. The fragile family they had created from desperation and hope. The wind died near midnight. Silence fell thick and ominous. The kind of quiet that came before violence showed its face. Stone chambered around, settled in to wait. Detective Webb returned at dawn with company. 3 hard-faced men flanked him in the yard. Their horses stamped frost from the ground. Breath steamed in the cold air. Stone opened the door before they knocked. Rifle cradled in his arms. His face carried the calm of a man who had already decided how far he would go. Morning, McKinnon. Time we had that talk. Nothing's changed since yesterday. Webb dismounted. His companions stayed mounted, hands resting easy on gun butts. The arrangement spoke of practiced intimidation. Like you to meet some associates. Silas, Crane, Tommy Beck, Jake Morrison. They've traveled a long way to settle some business. Stone's eyes moved from face to face, memorizing features, calculating reach and reaction time. Your wife owes money, Crane said. Substantial money. Time to pay up. She's not my wife, and she doesn't owe you anything. Webb pulled folded papers from his coat. Legal documents thick with official seals. Marriage certificate says different. Serafina Hartwell. Married to Edmund Hartwell of Boston. Debts pass. To surviving family. Stone read through the papers without lowering his rifle. The documents looked authentic. Marriage, debts, legal claims that stretched across state lines. Husband's dead, Webb continued. Killed in factory accident 6 months back. Left considerable gambling debts. Creditors want satisfaction. Serafina appeared in the doorway. Hope wrapped in blankets against her chest, her face pale but determined. Edmund's dead? Webb nodded. Sorry for your loss, ma'am. But debts don't die with debtors. What debts? Serafina's voice carried steel beneath the shock. I never signed for his gambling. Doesn't matter under law. Wife's responsible for husband's obligations. Crane stepped forward. His coat fell open to reveal a pistol grip. $2,300, plus interest, plus collection fees. The sum hit Stone between the ribs. More money than he had ever seen. More than 3 years of careful saving. Don't have it, Stone said. Then we take collateral. Crane's eyes moved to Hope. Child's worth something. Plenty of folks want babies they can't make themselves. Stone's rifle came up fast. The metallic click of the hammer echoed across the yard. Nobody touches the child. The mounted men shifted, in their saddles. Hands moved closer to weapons. Tension stretched wire-tight. Easy now, Webb said. No need for violence. We're reasonable men conducting legal business. Stone kept his rifle trained on Crane. The man's eyes held the flat shine of a snake's. No conscience, no mercy, just appetite and opportunity. I got money, Stone said finally. Savings. Enough to cover what she owes. Crane smiled without warmth. Let's see it. Stone's jaw worked around words that tasted bitter. Everything I got. 3 years of saving. But the debts die with payment. Legal debts, Webb agreed. Course, there might be other obligations, other creditors. Hard to say what might surface later. The threat hung in the cold air. Payment now, more payment later. A chain that would never break. Stone looked at Serafina holding their daughter. Saw the fear she tried to hide, the guilt eating at her from inside. He made his choice. I'll get the money. Stone disappeared into the cabin, returned with a leather pouch heavy with coins and bills. His life's work reduced to weight in his hands. Count it, he told Crane. The man's fingers moved through the money with practiced speed. His face showed satisfaction and greed in equal measure. This covers the principal, Crane said. Interest makes it 3,000 even. Stone's knuckles went white on his rifle stock. You said 2,300, prices go up, collection's expensive work. Webb stepped between them, his hands raised in mock peace. Now, gentlemen, let's be reasonable. Money's money. Debts get paid. Everyone goes home happy. The detective's calm manner cracked enough to show something else underneath. Calculation. A man playing angles for his own benefit. Actually, Webb continued, there's something else we should discuss. Legal matter concerning the debts themselves. Crane turned, his face showing confusion for the first time. Edmund Hartwell's debts, Webb said slowly, died with Edmund Hartwell. Under territorial law, widows not responsible for gambling obligations. Creditors got no legal claim. The words fell like stones into still water. Ripples of understanding spread across every face. You lying snake, Crane snarled. We had a deal. Deal was to find the woman, help collect legitimate debts. These debts ain't legitimate. Crane's hand moved toward his gun. His companions followed suit. The morning exploded into motion. Stone's rifle boomed. Crane spun sideways, clutched his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. The mounted men drew iron. Stone dove behind the water trough. Wood splintered around him. Bullets whined through the air. Webb's pistol appeared in his hand. But he aimed at Crane's men, not Stone. 2 shots, fast and accurate. Both riders toppled from their saddles. Silence fell like a curtain. Gun smoke drifted on the cold breeze. 3 men lay still in the yard. Only Crane moved, whimpering over his wounded shoulder. Webb holstered his weapon, walked to where Stone crouched behind cover. His badge caught the morning light. "Real detective," he said. "Boston police. Been tracking this bunch for months. Extortion, fraud, murder in 2 states." Stone rose slowly, rifle still ready. "Why didn't you say so?" Had to let them show their hand, needed evidence of their methods. Serafina emerged from the cabin, Hope crying in her arms, her eyes wide with shock and relief. Edmund's debts? Dead with Edmund, Webb confirmed. These men been running a swindle, finding desperate women, inventing debts, collecting money that was never owed. The relief hit Serafina like a physical blow. She sagged against the doorframe. Stone caught her elbow, steadied her on legs that had forgotten how to hold weight. Cornelius Whitmore rode into the yard at full gallop, his face flushed with excitement and vindication. Behind him came Sheriff Creed and 3 deputies. "What's all the shooting about?" Whitmore demanded. Webb showed his badge. "Police business. These men are under arrest for fraud and extortion." Whitmore's face fell. His mouth worked around protests that never came. The careful plan he had helped orchestrate crumbled before his eyes. "You knew," Stone said. "It wasn't a question." Whitmore's silence was answer enough. He had been part of the scheme from the beginning, finding women through his mail order business, setting them up for Crane's collection methods. Sheriff Creed cuffed the survivors, loaded them into his wagon. The bodies would follow later. Justice moved slow, but it moved. Webb returned Stone's money, all of it. The conspiracy had been exposed, the innocent protected, the guilty punished. As the law rode away, Stone and Serafina stood in their yard. Hope had stopped crying. The baby seemed to sense that danger had passed. The cabin waited, warm and safe, their sanctuary against the world's cruelties. Stone's dreams remained intact, his savings preserved. The future they had planned together still possible. But something had changed in the morning's violence. They had faced the worst together, survived it, proved their bond could weather any storm. Hope reached tiny fingers toward her father's face. Stone smiled, the first genuine smile in days. "We're free," Serafina whispered. Stone nodded, looked toward the horizon where their future waited, free to build, free to love, free to become the family they had chosen to be. The wind carried the scent of spring despite winter's grip. Change coming, new seasons, new possibilities. They walked toward their cabin together. 3 people who had found each other in the midst of chaos, who had made a family from courage and determination and love that refused to break. The door closed behind them, shutting out the cold, holding in the warmth they had created together. Spring arrived 3 weeks late, but determined to make up for lost time. The frozen ground softened into mud that sucked at boot heels. Ice broke, up on the creek with sounds like breaking glass. New grass pushed through winter's debris with desperate green fingers. Cornelius Whitmore sat in the territorial jail awaiting trial. His mail-order bride scheme had collapsed under Detective Webb's investigation. Other victims had come forward, women who had been hunted and terrorized by men who invented their debts. The town's attitude shifted with the weather. Shame had a way of making people reconsider their positions. Stone and Serafina found nods where there had been sneers, hesitant smiles replacing turned backs. The general store extended credit without being asked. The blacksmith charged fair prices. Children no longer whispered and pointed when they walked past. Acceptance came slowly, earned through survival rather than granted through charity, but it came. Hope thrived with the warming air. Her breathing strengthened. Her appetite grew. She began to focus on faces and follow movement with curious eyes. The fragile infant was becoming a fighter. Stone's horse breeding operation took shape with spring's arrival. 3 mares carried foals. The bloodlines he had planned for years would finally manifest in living flesh. Serafina kept the books with mathematical precision, tracked breeding schedules and profit margins, corresponded with buyers in distant territories. Her education proved invaluable in ways the mail-order advertisement had never mentioned. They worked side by side from dawn to dusk, building something that would outlast them both. Creating legacy from love and stubborn determination. Doc Morrison became a regular visitor. He claimed to check on Hope's development but stayed for coffee and conversation. The old physician seemed to enjoy their company, their easy partnership, and shared purpose. One evening, he lingered past his usual departure time. Hope slept in her cradle. Stone and Serafina sat by the fire reviewing breeding charts. "You two should make this legal," Doc Morrison said finally. Stone looked up from his papers. "We are legal. I mean proper legal. Church wedding, witnesses, community recognition." Serafina's hand stilled on her pen. The subject had hung unspoken between them for weeks. What they had was real, but it remained unblessed by any authority beyond their own choosing. Doc Morrison pulled out his watch, checked the time with theatrical precision. "Reverend Parker owes me a favor, big favor, delivered his grandson under difficult circumstances." Stone studied Serafina's face in the firelight, found questions there that matched his own. "If you want it," Stone said quietly. Serafina smiled, the first truly joyful expression he had seen since Hope's birth. "I want it." The wedding took place on a Saturday in May. The church filled with unexpected faces. Townspeople who had shunned them now came to witness their union. The widow Henderson brought flowers from her garden. The schoolteacher played piano. Even Sheriff Creed attended in his best suit. Serafina wore a dress borrowed from the doctor's wife, white cotton with lace at the collar. Simple but beautiful. Stone had cleaned his one good suit until it looked nearly new. Reverend Parker spoke about second chances, about love that conquered adversity, about the family that chose each other against all odds. When Stone slipped the ring onto Serafina's finger, his hands trembled slightly. When she said her vows, her voice carried across the church clear and strong. Hope slept through the ceremony, woke for the reception with perfect timing. The congregation passed her from hand to hand, cooed over her tiny fingers and button nose, welcomed her as their own. The celebration lasted until midnight, food and music and laughter that echoed off the church walls. Community blessing on a union that had begun in desperation and grown into something beautiful. Summer brought the foals Stone had dreamed about. 4 healthy births from bloodlines that would establish his reputation. Buyers came from 3 states to examine his stock. Prices exceeded his most optimistic projections. Serafina managed the business correspondence, negotiated contracts, scheduled deliveries. Her sharp mind and careful attention to detail impressed hardened horse traders. They prospered in ways that had nothing to do with money. Hope grew strong and alert. Their partnership deepened into something unshakable. The community that had rejected them now claimed them as essential members. August brought news that changed everything again. Serafina's monthly bleeding failed to arrive. Her morning sickness returned with familiar intensity. The signs were unmistakable. She told Stone while they watched Hope play with wooden blocks on the cabin floor. He absorbed the news with quiet joy. No fear this time. No desperate scrambling for solutions. This child would be born into security, into a family that had proven its strength, into a community that would welcome rather than shun. Autumn painted the hills in colors that hurt to look at directly, gold and crimson and amber that made the eyes water with beauty. Hope took her first steps during the season of falling leaves. Stone carved her a rocking horse from pine. Serafina read to her from books that opened worlds beyond their valley. Winter returned with gentler intentions. Snow fell soft and straight. The cold bit less sharply. They were prepared this time. Root cellar full, firewood stacked to the roof, money in the bank earning interest. Hope celebrated her first birthday with cake and candles, and more presents than one child could reasonably need. The community had adopted her completely. She belonged to everyone and everyone belonged to her. Serafina's pregnancy progressed without complications. Doc Morrison visited weekly, pronounced mother and child healthy, predicted an easy birth when spring arrived. They spent the long evenings planning. Additions to the cabin, expansion of the horse operation, Names for the child who would arrive with the warming weather. Stone carved a second cradle. Serafina sewed tiny clothes. Hope babbled in her own language and seemed to understand that changes were coming. On a March morning when the creek ran high with snowmelt, Serafina went into labor. This time, Doc Morrison arrived within the hour. This time the birth proceeded without drama or danger. A son. Healthy and loud and perfect in every detail. They named him Tobias after his father. Called him Toby for the way he seemed to smile even in sleep. Stone held his son with hands that shook slightly, remembered holding little Hawk the same way years before. The fear and wonder were identical, but this time felt different. Blessed, rather than borrowed. Serafina watched her husband cradle their child, saw the healing that fatherhood brought to his wounded heart. The way past grief transformed into present joy. Hope examined her baby brother with scientific curiosity, touched his tiny fingers, proclaimed him acceptable by patting his head with gentle care. The cabin overflowed with visitors. Women brought food and advice. Men offered congratulations and cigars. Children pressed their faces against windows to glimpse the newest member of their community. Summer arrived early and stayed late. The horse operation expanded beyond Stone's wildest projections. Orders came from California and Texas. The McKinnon name became synonymous with quality breeding stock. Serafina managed a growing business with skill that impressed everyone who worked with her. Letters arrived daily, contracts and correspondence, and requests for their services. They built an addition to the cabin, then another. What had started as a one-room shelter became a proper house with space for a growing family and expanding dreams. On a September evening exactly 2 years after that first desperate day at the train station, Stone and Serafina sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard. Hope chased fireflies while Toby crawled through grass that reached his shoulders. The woman who had been abandoned on a dusty platform was gone. In her place sat someone who knew her worth, who had found her place, who had built a life from courage and the love of a good man. Stone reached for her hand, found it waiting for his touch. Their fingers intertwined with the comfort of old habit and the spark of continuing romance. That day at the station, Stone said quietly, "I thought I was saving you." Serafina smiled, watched their children discover the world with fearless joy. We were both just finding our way home. The stars emerged one by one. The night settled around them with gentle weight. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges and joys. But tonight held everything they needed. The fireflies danced. The children laughed. The future stretched ahead bright with possibility. They had built something lasting, something beautiful, something that proved love could triumph over any obstacle when two people refused to surrender. The porch creaked gently in the evening breeze. Their home, their family, their happily ever after earned through trials that had only made them stronger. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.